this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today we have two questions from two people that happen to dovetail. And the first question is from Magenta. And Magenta writes in to say that she has experienced a profound psychic communication with her pet. But her question is not about that. And she simply takes for granted that people can have that kind of communication with domestic animals, which I would agree with. And I think that many of our viewers will probably agree that they have had that kind of experience. But Magenta's question is, can you have that same kind of psychic communication with a wild animal? Now, the second question comes to us from Grace Moontail, who tells us that she has in fact had this kind of experience working with dolphins. And her question is, where can she go to practice and perfect this connection that she has found in which she is able to communicate with dolphins? Now, the two answers to the two questions are these. First, I certainly do believe that many people have a profound psychic connection amounting to communication with their domestic animals, and I do believe that you can have that same kind of communication with a wild animal as well. It depends on a number of factors, including your particular abilities, the particular animal, and the circumstances, of course. I don't know that just anyone could go out and do this, although I do believe that anyone could probably learn to do it. But where would you go to learn to do it? Where can Grace Moontail go to practice and perfect it? Well, that's a whole other question. It's, I think, a fairly common experience, but not a common skill. And there's a big difference between an experience and a skill. And I'm not entirely sure who I could recommend to teach such a thing, or how you could practice it other than by simply practicing it. So, in terms of the first question, yes, I believe it's possible. And in terms of the second, the only thing I can suggest for where to practice it is to go out into nature where the animals are and see if you can't establish a connection. Now, in our second-degree book, we talk about making a similar connection to plant life. And I would think that it would not be terribly different. And I would say to ask Spirit to help you, ask your guides to help you, and put yourself in a place where you can encounter some animals and see if you cannot connect with them in a psychic manner. And I think that you'll find, particularly if you have some experience in psychic things, that you will be able to do so, though how much and how often are another question. And in terms of Grace Moontail and the question about dolphins, that's rather harder, because where do you go for dolphins? It's not as simple as going to the local park, but if you happen to live near the ocean, it's another matter. But what I would recommend for Grace is to perhaps try to do it through meditation when actual physical contact is not possible. Because you do not have to be in the same room with a person or an animal to establish a psychic connection with it. One can do a psychic reading for a person who is many miles away, even on the other side of the planet, and still have a good connection. So certainly this would also be true with animals. How would you establish the connection in this case? Well, it would be best if it were an animal you'd already met. But I would say that you could reach out as you would for any other psychic information and make a connection. So, yes, I do believe it's possible. That would be my best suggestion for where to go to practice it and how to do so. And this is one of those things which, although it's an ancient art, because you hear about this throughout history, is not one that really is, in my opinion, thoroughly explored by any means. And it's one of those things where the frontiers of the metaphysical arts really could stand to be pushed back a little bit by people doing work with this. So what I would say to Grace Moontail and to Magenta both is to work with this and share your results with people. Work on perfecting this skill, work on teaching other people the skill, because I think it's a skill that the world would greatly benefit from. And there really aren't a lot of people who can do it on command. There are a lot of people who will have this experience, but again, experience and skill are two different things. So those would be my thoughts on the matter. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may your blessed be. The Tarot of Hecate. My 100-card tarot deck, 30 years in the making, finally available to you from witchschoolstore.com. Check out a copy today.